Welcome to Arbory Digital Experiences. This is lucky number episode 13, being recorded on a Friday. I'm Tad Reeves, Principal Architect at Arbory Digital. I'm joined here by Marta and Michał from StreamX. And we just finished the adaptTo conference in Berlin. And I want to give you an overview of what that conference was all about, what we liked about it, what we learned from it, things that you can use, etc. So thank you for joining me, Marta and Michał. We were going to record this podcast maybe yesterday. I was at your office in Poznan, but now we're back into separate cities, separate countries. I'm still in Berlin, and you are in Białystok?
Yeah,
okay.
But in the office. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm sure your kids were glad to have you back.
Yeah.
Yes, they were. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I wanted to go into first so this is my first adaptTo, and it was not your first adaptTo. You guys are been to a few of them, but this is my first one. So I wanted was it you've been to a few or just?
Well, this was our second.
This is your second.
But Marta was a presenter last year, so it's counted twice.
Yeah, because I kind of list the no, it's actually the other way around. This is the first one that I actually remember because the last one was just like all the stress and all that.
Yeah. On the other hand, I got all the recordings of the previous adaptTo, so I feel like I've been being there together forever. This is like when you're an IEM developer, this is actually a single source of truth. What's happening?
It's true. It's true. I've watched so many adaptTo videos, and so okay, during COVID, so that adaptTo I actually really wanted to go to, and then COVID happened, and then so I went to that one online. So I kind of feel like I participated. So that's kind of like a 0.5. So yeah, so it's kind of like being in adaptTo. But so for everybody who doesn't know what adaptTo is it's pretty much like Michał said, it's pretty much the highest visibility developer centric AEM related conference. It's all developers, all tech people, zero marketing, and it's just all about tech stuff that tech people who are implementing AEM for customers need to know. And it's mostly just developers presenting to developers. So the conferences can get pretty technical, much more so than the more marketing-centric ones that are in at Adobe Summit. Because Adobe Summit can get kind of like businessy, you know what I mean? It's just a little bit too, fluff. Sometimes you feel like the conference talk was generated by ChatGPT or something like that with just, no, same script, more buzzwords. And,
Yeah, still, but in this year there was a Shaquille O'Neal, so it was good as well.
No Shaquille O'Neal at adaptTo though.
Yeah, we don't have Shaquille O'Neal in Berlin.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I don't know what the closest thing is we have, but so that was one of the things that I really liked about this though. Is it was basically all content. It was not any fluff. It was all content.
And I think that it's especially important now because recently it was just about the Slink updates, and if you are into a Slink, you could actually track the changes in the repositories, what they're doing, etc. So it was nice to be there, but you could have some sneaky peeks of what are planned to be done. Yeah. But it was not so crucial to be in adaptTo because you could actually see that in a project. So in here we have. It's not only about Apache Slink, it's still about AEM, but it's about experimentation, it's about edge delivery services, of course, and it's about Universal Editor. So it's much more, and you got it in one place. So yeah, I think it's great to be there.
And the one, sorry, go ahead.
No. I just said, I was just about to say that you get to learn from engineers and what they did on their project, and they are now sharing that experience and knowledge. So there are so many problems that you usually encounter, and then you have someone going on the stage saying, "Well, I had this problem. This is how I approached it. Here you go."
But also, so you had both sides though at the conference. You have implementers, and these are hard, very high-end implementers, not just implementing dinky sites, but implementing really big problems. But then at the same time, you had a lot of people who were the back-end engineers at Adobe busy making these features. So it wasn't like we were removed for, so far, and it was just some product marketing guy or something like that. And when you ask a question, they can't say, oh, well, I'll have to get back to you. It was the guy who wrote it was there for the most part. And it was like, oh, well, the reason I did it like that was like this. And you also worked on that. What was that? Oh yeah, well, I did that because of this. It was like straight from the source, which I thought was really special.
So you can say thank you in person.
Yeah. Thank you. Or usually not other words, but
yeah. I see that 3 layers. So sometimes when you do work on your site in your company and you work in that company, you see only the world that is like
around you.
So one whole. So when you work in a consulting company, you may see what your colleagues do, but in general, they will do similar stuff to you, and you still got broader visibility, but it's still you and your colleagues. So in here, you can see what other tips, what other companies, so, other ideas, visions, and everything is like different maybe different from the way you were thinking. So.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And then get to ask the questions. I mean, it's, the presentation, and that is, again, just one piece of it, because you get to interact with all those people, and you get to interact with them discussing, technical problems and seeing, well, they've made certain decisions, what kind of trade-offs they did, why they chose this way and not the other one, what kind of use cases they had. So, I think there are so many different ways of taking value out of this conference deck.
Yes, and the other part about that is that almost everybody's presentation, when they talked about a solution, almost everybody brought up challenges that they had.
It's all
because at Adobe Summit sometimes, or at other conferences where you're trying to sell a product, you're going to bring up all the reasons why your product is great. You're not going to say, "Oh yeah, there were challenges." But each one of these implementers said, "Oh, so this technology. Okay, let me be clear. This technology is really, 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 really cool, but it's not perfect. And here are things that you need to be aware of." You know what I mean? Like Georg's talk about a bunch of those talks. They said, "Yeah, it's not magic. There's still work to do, but it is cool. And here are the cases where you should totally use this."
So from that perspective, I really liked the presentation about how they implemented Adobe.com, because it's like a huge challenge to do that. And the number, I don't remember the numbers, but they're astonishing. That number of pages, number of resources, numbers of visitor sites, and all of that. And they did that on Edge Delivery Services. So
I think they have proved a certain point with that. This technology may also serve large websites.
But at the same time, the challenges now. So we know that upfront.
And it's not perfect. It's not for everything, but it definitely is not a toy either. It's not just a toy, because it felt like a toy at first. The first time I heard of it, I'm like, publish a website with Google Docs. That's a party trick. Yeah, that's a party trick. That's not a real tool, but this is a tool. Luckily I'm working with somebody right now who has been kind of a primary on Adobe.com for a while. So I had a lot of the backdrop to that. So the tool that I got to present on is one that is going to be put to use on that as well. But there's one, before we go into presentations, there's one other point that I wanted to make about adaptTo in general, is that, so at Adobe Summit, you've got like a really small percentage of people who are presenting, like whatever, like maybe 100 or maybe tops 200 people who actually have a presentation to give out of like 15,000 people who are attending, right? At adaptTo, it's like a quarter of the people who are there were presenters. Like most of the people you would run into, they probably had a presentation also, in addition to being in the audience. So it was really, it felt like just like a, I don't know, it was a very different vibe. It was like everybody kind of like, oh, I really liked your thing. Oh, okay, I'm next. I'm super nervous, but here I go. Like, so yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I really think that if they closed us there, we could solve any problem in the world. Like If you think about people who can do
like this, yes. That's the thing, is that there were so many people there that, like, sometimes in my own circles, like I had a, I'm like, okay, I'll be an expert on this. I'll but in that circle, there's so many individual experts that I know that I pretty much got the best person in the world in the room on that thing. You know what I mean? Like there were some, like you said, almost anything could be solved with that. Like we could almost like fly a rocket ship using AEM.
I think that could be done.
It is a recommended use case. Like, yeah, it's CMS.
We've been doing harder things, I guess.
All right. Well, individual talks, because I wanted us to go over some individual things that we really liked about individual talks. I think one of the ones that a lot of people had an interest on is this whole AEM. Maybe it's going to be called 6.6 eventually. Who knows? But AEM and JDK 17. So I wanted to just kind of get the now that the news is out. Now it's not just rumor or supposition. Because I got a whole bunch of comments after that one that bike riding podcast that I did about 6.6. People going, okay, how do you know? Like who? Okay, really? Like what? Where's the actual? Like, so now that it's actually out, I can say. So here's the data. So sometime by the end of the year or early Q1, there's going to be a new version of AEM 6.5 that is going to run on JDK 17. There's reasons that they talked about on why that is. Java 11, Java 8, they're on the EOL list. EOL's in the future, but at least it's going to be EOL'd. So AIM's going to have to get off it anyway. It can just indefinitely run on 8 and 11. There's also other upstream vulnerabilities, packages that they can't patch, etc. So there's reasons. So they want to move to an LTS version of the JDK, moving to 17, which has got support, it's got to have regular updates and so forth. So they haven't announced the name for it yet. So so we can't tell if it's actually really going to be AEM 6.6. The code name that they've given right now is AEM 6.5 2025 edition, which is like a terrible code name because it's going to be 6.5.25. And then in a few months, we're going to have AEM 6.5 Service Pack 25. So it'll be 6.5.25 also. And so we're going to have two things. Anyway, it'll get confusing. So hopefully they call it 6.6. I really hope they call it something besides 6.5 2025 edition, because that's the worst.
I really believe it's like a marketing decision. So should we tell the clients that they get a new version, especially if we want them to go into cloud?
I know, but that's the thing. So if you finish this whole adaptTo, there's tools for every workload. There's 6.5 tools, and the people who are still using 6.5 now, it's not because they're afraid of the cloud. It's because that's the right tool for the job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's same with cloud service. Like the people who are on cloud service, I mean, some people are on it because they were afraid that they were supposed to move, but other people, it's because it's the right tool for the job. And edge delivery now, there's sites where that's the right tool for the job. So
yeah. So why Java 17, not 21?
Well, so they said they're still trying to make it work with 21. They said 20 because 21 has only, when was that released? That was last year that it came out, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fresh last year.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh. So getting Sling and Oak to work on JDK 21, I think the eventual plan is to make cloud service run on 21, but they're still working on that, is what they said.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about bumping up Java version, it's pretty simple when you got a single repository project and you can just change it to run tests and maybe do some small tests and it runs. But when you think about a product that is like 357, I guess, repositories in Sling only.
Yes.
So, and you get thousands or tens of thousands of customers using it all around the world, and you need to be sure that it doesn't break anything. Right. So they mentioned that they want to go step by step. So 11 to 17, and then from 17 to 21 eventually.
Right. And they said too that yeah, their plan was to get cloud service running on 21. But I mean, there's so many people who went to cloud service assuming that there's never going to be, because that one of the selling points of cloud service is no big jumps.
Yeah.
And no big upgrade projects, right? And so if you give somebody a big upgrade project, you're basically breaking the sales contract that you made with them when you sold them the service. So it has to not be a big jump. It has to be a pretty, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it has to be pretty small in terms of the lift, the developer lift to get people onto 21.
Okay, I think also it's because of the pace. So when you upgrade 6.5, everyone can do it in their own pace. Yeah. And with AEM as a cloud service, they push the updates to all of the repositories at once. So they need to know upfront that every single customer won't have any problems with that. So that's probably a challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure yeah. I mean, there's probably ways that they can do staged rollouts and so forth, or early access customers or something like, you've got a simple site. Can you do it first? Okay, yours is a more complex case. Can you put your stage environment on, or can we run your code on this thing to make sure it works and things like that? But evidently, they're saying it's going to be faster. I mean, because you got speed enhancements natively, really, in the JDK. So, and the procedure to get there, evidently, also you're going to have the other bit that they were talking about is that they're going to have both WAR and JAR versions of it released. So I mean, I don't know who does this anymore.
WAR, exactly.
What is this type of person that is going to run AEM on Tomcat?
There are customers because they got the data. If anyone knows about it, they know it.
Yeah. So I've seen
perspective. It gives you the perspective that it's like, when you think about library, it can be easily upgraded. But there are people still using Tomcat to run AEM, or WebSphere, right? So we think about how backward compatible it has to be, and how many checks has to be done before really upgrading to Java 17.
That's right.
So from the other end, what?
Sir, and I think that there was that one thing that you mentioned is that there was an announcement about this beta program or something, right? If you want to register interest into trying out that with your customer.
That's right, and they shared it. They shared a link, and I saved it.
Someone shared a link.
They shared. It was in there. Yeah, but I think we may have to wait for the slides because I took a picture of it. They had a QR code. So, but they're going to have a new pattern detector specifically for this upgrade because you had the old pattern detector that we've been using forever. But obviously there's going to be things that they're going to bring up on this that are like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do this. This is going to explode if you try to put this one on the 6.5 2025 edition.
Let me just put down the shades because it's.
It looks, you get Sunset Mountain.
I already know because, exactly.
I tried to reposition myself, but it just didn't.
I succeeded, but actually the sun is moving and we get the window just over here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, we're just moving slowly.
I don't know. It looked beautiful, but yeah. But yeah, they said they're going to have two different mechanisms for getting onto the new version, which is going to be an upgrade or a side grade. So you can basically you can do an in-place upgrade for folks that's the right idea, or to have kind of an oak upgrade style upgrade process similar to like a 6.4 to 6.5 migration. So it seems like it's going to be straightforward, but can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, so I think that what's interesting for people is that AEM will be maintained for a long, long time. And so Adobe is prepared to run that for a lot of customers, even on-prem, right?
Yes.
So not everyone is moving to the cloud, and even though there was not so many innovations around Sling, like most of the innovations, I would say, was around a delivery service or the Universal Editor or experimentation. We'll get to that, I guess. So yeah, it's like AEM is like a feature-ready product.
Yes.
Yeah, especially on-prem, and it's actively maintained. It actually get fixes, and it's not moving anywhere.
That's right. And I think that this is probably there's been all this like rumor around, is Adobe really going to get rid of this? Is it going away? Are you serious that it's not deprecated? But if you just take just that datum about, oh yeah, this is going to support, Jetty or Tomcat and WebSphere. Like if you just look at that, like look at the customers that Adobe has to continue to support on this. This is for the customers that are still running their own 6.5, they're going to be running this for a while. And so this is it's got its set of use cases, and it's going to be around for a bit.
Yes.
So what other ones? I brought this one up. What were some of your other favorite talks? We were 3 packed days. Those were very packed days of talks, and they were all interesting. What was one of the other ones that you guys found interesting?
Well, for me, one of the most interesting ones were this by Georg Hansler. It was about moving 40 terabytes of assets from one place to the other. Well, where the other place was AEM assets, and one place was some legacy built in-house platform. And I loved how Georg told his story, because, well, it was he gave everything in terms that, well, I had this problem. There were, those challenges that we had with our approach. I actually had a pretty decent approach, but, well, it wasn't the right one finally. Then he showed us the approach that he took, showed the comparison between, how it might be done and then how it actually was done, and showed the numbers afterwards. So,
like reasoning, it was like a conceptual approach, not only here is a code, look, but, you will be in that position. You will have that problem. If not that, you will have a similar problem. So how can you give the best possible solution? And I like the Excel sheet, like, everyone.
That was actually super interesting, because, you run an experiment. Okay, that's for this sample of data, this will be that long, let's say. Yeah. Well, but we have so much more data, so let's extrapolate on that. Well, okay, that seems to be 60 something days. We're not going to do that like that.
Right.
I mean, especially with a customer, you need to talk. It's nice to talk about opinions,
but sometimes you just need to have hard data. Well, with the constraints that we have, with the fact that you'll need to freeze code or freeze content production or something else, well, we can't do it that long. So let's think about some creative ways of doing it differently.
Yeah, because when you have something like that, when you have a massive assets repository like that, you can't do one migration, which is part of the problem that he was trying to solve, right? You have to do it more than one time. So and the problem he's trying to solve also is, how do I get the entire thing over in a weekend, basically? And all 40 terabytes. There's other problems, like cloud service recycles those instances every day. And so you have to be able to know that any one of these big, 700 gigabyte single assets could, while you're transferring it over, the instance you're transferring it to could die. So, and be recycled. So it has to be resilient to that. That was just a fascinating set of just like so many of our problems that we try to all solve as consultants. We're like, well, my way, and I think it's really nice, but you have a way that, when it's hard numbers like that, it's like, okay, we have a way. That's right. It's a good way. It'll take 20 days to do this. And then if we do it this way, I ran the numbers, this will take 6 days. That's longer than one weekend in my country. So, and then this way only takes 2.5 days, and that's the best, but it's this but it's complicated in this way. But but still the approach was to do a continuous migrations, like they were migrating deltas as well. Yeah.
So people could still use the old system.
Yeah.
And, after they disabled it after some time, I guess. So even if you forgot that all the data was migrated and you still used your own old system, the data was eventually moved to a new one. So
yeah,
that was fascinating.
Like he had a couple of quotes that I thought were like these zinger quotes. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna use that quote later on. Like the purpose-built platforms tend to age quicker than products. Like that was one of those. I thought that was a great quote. I'm like, that. Sorry,
it's a great quote. Yeah, it will be used quite often, I guess.
Yeah, I'm stealing that. And the other one, which I'm like, I had never really thought of all the way, but it's true, is that he's like, migration code is always throwaway code.
Yeah, like, that's true. I also noticed that. In fact, you're right. I mean, I will use it once. I mean, I don't need to spend days in, I don't know, like making sure that the name of the variable is just perfect, because there will be like thousands of engineers looking at it and thinking, why he made that name like that? I mean, just no way. So
that's right. Or does it need to be the most elegant solution? Like, does it work? You're going to use it this time and then throw it away.
And you are the only one who is going to use it. So it's not like a product that will be distributed to thousands of people.
That's right. You're not going to say,
yeah,
it's not going to be your like open source side project that you brand later, like, CAD's migration script, come check it out. Like it's gone. No, but he also talked about, and he led into it, and then there was another talk afterwards about dynamic media with OpenAPI, which I was really interested in that because that was one of these ones that was announced at Adobe Summit, and I was like, I can't wait until somebody really, really tries to use this and like tell me if it's any good. Because it sounds cool that you could use, like, basically with an API, you upload everything. Cause like, I've always had this idea that you could use AEM assets and make sure you stick everything in there. And once it's there, you can use it anywhere, any site, you're sending emails, you got websites, non-AEM websites, you could just use it wherever you want. And that was always the dream. But like, did you ever implement with connected assets?
No.
Do you remember that? It was terrible.
I haven't, but I believe it.
Yeah, you'd upload it and it would make a copy on any other AEM system. It would actually physically copy the assets out to all the publishers. So any assets you have, you need like 10 times as much storage because you're copying it out. Anyway,
yeah, I did.
Yeah. But yeah, but I mean, it didn't work on everything. Like, for example, the OpenAPI doesn't support smart crop on video. So if you use smart crop on video, like if you're using it to serve your YouTube and then your TikTok ones or whatever, like that doesn't work. So, but
doesn't support it yet, probably, right?
Was that
is that it's not yet supported?
Because it's not supported yet. Yeah, I mean, who knows? That might be right around the corner. But yeah, no, that was a great talk. Another one of my favorite talks was the OpenTelemetry talk for AEM as a cloud service. I love that because I love, like, you've showed me your stats stuff on StreamX, and it's like super cool that you can get into like all this, nuts and bolts of exactly what's happening. And I always hated when just even the idea that just somebody else is watching cloud service and I don't need to worry about it because it's like Google Docs. Like, I don't know what the back end telemetry is on Google Docs, but I just use it. The idea that cloud services like that is always, it's just wrong because you need to know what's actually happening. You need to be able to debug it.
I mean, because you are an engineer that changes the internals. You do not change the bundles within the Microsoft that do something with the documents. I mean,
that's right.
This is what you do exactly with IEM. So IEM is a distribution together with your code. Yeah. So okay, you don't need to monitor Oak. We can trust that it's done and it's implemented and working, and someone else is monitoring that. But if you are the one that implement a service, you need to make sure. I mean, no one else will take care of it. Like you need to be able to observe it, to find issues, to react. If you will be the one that is called in the middle of the night when it's low.
Yeah. And the Adobe engineer who's on the job, all he'll be able to do, or he or she will be able to do, is just say, apparently after you deployed that, it started breaking.
Yeah.
But then now you need to find out why. You need to say, oh, well, this is where this started climbing, or whatever it was. You need to be able to get in there and with nuts and bolts.
So in general, I liked two things about that presentation. The problems that they solved that gave observability to AEM instances is one, but it was very informative. Like they give you introduction. What is OpenTelemetry? So in general, with monolithic systems, it's not a problem to see if you get access to the Linux box and you can do the memory dump. You can check the stack traces. You can use JMX to connect to the Java, or you can even connect your debugger. If you are in the control of a process, you can do anything. Especially that historically it was a single machine. Like, we got single AEM author, you got 2 or 3 publishers, and you could physically, the URL address or IP address of that machine. You could physically log in there and check what's happening.
Yeah.
So OpenTelemetry, just for the couple, is a protocol that is vendor, not the protocol, but a tooling added protocol that is vendor neutral, that allows you to collect telemetric data, and those data are metrics, traces, or logs. So
yes.
So metrics are what you can see in, for example, Grafana. So charts, etc., CPU usage, memory usage, disk usage, or your custom metrics. Logs are the logs, of course, but you don't have access to it. I mean, now you can connect Splunk, I guess, but
you can connect Splunk. But what the person giving the presentation was noting is that, so on cloud service, what happens is, like, you've got all of the services together that are in their Kubernetes cluster, and they're logging to Splunk. They log to a backend service that ends up getting pushed eventually to you. There might those are chunked and sent over. So so it's chunked and delayed. So when you're sitting there because you're like, okay, my hypothesis is when somebody hits this page, then memory probably spikes because this is happening. So let's tail it when it's happening. So you try to tail it on Splunk or something like that, and you're waiting for 30 seconds, for 45 seconds, and then 10,000 lines come over, and you're like, okay, was that my request? Was that the 50 other requests? You don't know. And you don't know even if it was the same machine, like you were saying. It could be because you're getting it with all these other machines too. So you don't know what machine you would just hit when you hit that too.
So you may imagine that I'm a real advocate of the real-time data processing and not much loading and experts. So the last part, just to close the previous, there are traces. Like we got logs, we got metrics, and we got traces. And traces are when, for example, customer make a request, it goes through CDN, then dispatcher, publishers, and when it's on a publisher, it can go down to the Sling servlet and can run your components. So what they did, they sent everything, I guess, using OpenTelemetry. It doesn't matter what tool you use to visualize the metrics or to collect them. I mean, OpenTelemetry is collecting them and then exports to the tool of your choice. It can be New Relic. They use a Datadog.
Yeah, these Datadog. Of course, Datadog would love you to use it, because think of all those metrics. I mean, Datadog, you just plug that in. That's tens of thousands of dollars per day for Datadog. Of course, it works on Datadog.
Yeah, I will get back to it. It was actually my question. So what was cool about it, that they gave a demo that when you get an exception, you can actually correlate a trace, so the user request, with an exception in logs, with the exact moment and the path that the request was, going to to reach that point. So which services, was it cached? Was it not cached? There was a couple of things still to be done, I guess. One thing is that what you say, if you got like millions of visitors, you probably do not want to store every trace in a system.
Yeah, it'll be way too expensive. Yeah.
If you're not the one who is paying this, it's not.
But still, there's a better way to spend that money.
Yeah, so there is possibility to sample traces. Like, if you got millions of visitors, you can just collect 1%. It will be just good enough for you to know if there are any errors or not. Because if you got like millions users, one exception is not a problem. When you got like 20% of requests with an exception, that's a problem. Right. So there is a lot that sampling that can make you some savings by not sending all the telemetry data to Datadog. So that's just in a response of that.
Yeah, totally. And but at least having that available, because what the presenter was bringing up is that if you just have, like, if you've got regular AEM on premise and you're running New Relic, right? Because cloud service also comes with New Relic. But if you're running it yourself, you can do all that distributed tracing yourself. You get all the logs yourself. You can get CPU and all that kind of stuff. You get it all yourself, and it's not delayed because you run the platform. You've got the Java agent plugged into that AEM environment, so you've got the whole thing. You can't plug your own Java agent into this. You have to use the New Relic that Adobe provides, and it's hamstrung. It's like it's kind of partial New Relic. It's not the whole thing. So it's definitely much more limited.
Yeah. So I think that in a demo they share their repository with the project that you can use actually and upload it, and they do send those traces, logs, and metrics. I guess I haven't seen metrics there to the Datadog using not Java agent but a regular OpenTelemetry client.
That's right.
And they were using OpenTelemetry collectors to fetch that.
That's
so
right.
Yeah, that was super cool. Definitely. And getting back to the, it's like a monolithic systems. The IAM instance that runs on a single box for, with a physical address, and it runs there for 10 years. We all know clients that uses that, and this is like
it's got a name. It's called, I'm going to log into Pete or whatever its name is, Yeah. And okay, good.
Like a pet, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you really care that it's got enough memory and it's fed with a CPU.
That's right.
And we can even check uptime from time to time. Yeah. So it's age. So the whole process. So it's completely different in the cloud when you got Kubernetes, like you said, and you got pods, and those pods can be down anytime. And if something is wrong with the pod, you just kill it, and the new pod will spin off. So that's right. You cannot just
which can hide problems too. So because when they're being recycled all the time, you're like, are they is for 50% of the day, are they unacceptable? But you just always, because they get recycled all the time, you just don't know.
Exactly. So, that's why in distributed systems, observability is the key. And to do it right, it's like a lot of effort. But at the end, it's not something that you sell while selling a product. But when you are in trouble, it's something that saves you and your customer. So definitely, if anyone is watching that, go to that presentation, check that cool OpenTelemetry stuff, and go to the repository, check it by yourself, because it's like it should be a standard, and I think everyone should know that, how to do that.
Absolutely. Now, another part of working on the cloud service, or any cloud service, but specifically on AEM cloud service, a challenge has been the difference between a local development environment and deploying into the cloud. It's because you get all these dev environments, and they act differently than your local. And so Adobe's solution for that was these rapid development environments, which are in the cloud, but they're kind of a hybrid between cloud and your local. Like, they're both running kind of TarMK. They're not running a Mongo author, so you can push things into it whenever you want to. There's a bunch of things that were advances and enhancements that were made to RDE environments that were talked about at adaptTo. There's a new AIO endpoint or command for getting RDE logs in real time, because the RDE logs used to be chunked and so forth, just like the ones out of production. So when you're trying to use it like a dev environment, you're like, wow, why is my thing broken? It was the same problem basically. Now you run the command and it basically spits the logs out in real time. You're hooked right into it, and it's just tailing them right to the console, which is really nice. But also, they one of the challenges before too is that so you spin up these RDE environments in the cloud, they're blank, and so you have to go and deploy all your code to it. And now you finally got it set up, because it doesn't have pipelines, so you're just basically running commands to deploy your code straight into it, but it's still blank. And so you got to copy all of your content from production or whatever down onto it. And you're like, good, now it runs like production. But then if there's another update, like a version update, which happens every month, you have to do the whole thing again. So now they've got a functionality for resetting the AEM application without blowing away all the content. And then also to allow snapshot restore points for your RDE. So like, let's just say you're doing something where it's doing a bunch of potentially destructive changes. You're trying to test that before you go to dev. Then you can do that and then hit the restore point and say, oh, I totally bricked it, basically. Okay, good. You could go back to a restore point.
So is it happen on the data and the code level? So if you
because already you've got the mutable and immutable parts of the repo, which is the same for this, except for it's different in that while the machine is running, because it's this RDE environment and not the way that it is in the cloud, you can push code into it while it's hot. So it's kind of like this in between lives thing. But then also, I haven't worked with that yet, that particular bit, because but anyway, it potentially is going to solve problems like that. Like if you had enough money. Well, this is the other thing too, is that, so you get one RDE environment when you get cloud service. And if you want more, you got to pay. And so people are like, oh, why do I got to pay? It's always already so expensive. Why do I got to pay? Well, you know what also is expensive is all the tooling to set up local environments. That's also expensive.
And
try to give
the most expensive is the engineering time.
Yeah.
So you want to make them up and running and solve problems, and having back on production that cannot be resolved because someone cannot reproduce that on his environment. This is costly. Right. So I believe that RDE should be cheaper for sure. We all for that. Yeah. But when you compare, being able to fix, you don't have to use RDEs. This is an option. You can spin off another one and just use it. So I think it's good to have an option. And regarding your snapshots, I remember VMware Workspace. You got the button, take a snap. So you could do whatever you want, and you couldn't break it because you got reset in a couple of seconds. Okay, I can start over.
Yep, I see all these like awful looking errors. You're like, oh,
that's right. Okay, another round.
Another life.
Another life.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Give me more life.
But another one too that was a neat use case of this. So Quentin and Marius gave their whole talk on the Managed CDN, which that was one of my bike riding podcasts to talk about Managed CDN, because I got to use that on one of my clients, and it's fun. But one of the things that is a little bit challenging with it is that you always have to, like, the only place you can test your CDN configurations is with the CDN.
Yes.
Is there any way to do it without a CDN? Well, then it's not the CDN. But to push it straight into the RDE environment, you can basically just run the config pipeline, just immediately like that. So you could you're basically running, it takes like 30 seconds or something like that. So, I mean, that's pretty easy way to just iterate and just say, oh, my syntax is a little wrong. Oh, whoops, my YAML, is busted. Okay, fine. And get it done. So it's about as close as you get to local development for a CDN, which is also kind of cool.
I think that, I mean, if you think about undiscovered problems that happen on production, most of them happens because the production environment is different than the lower environments. And I'm not even saying about situations when someone, uploads the code directly to production environment with skipping, or they even don't have a lower environment.
We won't talk about that.
I mean, it happens, but there are things like, okay, we got the same set of bundles, or more or less the same. I mean, experience that tells us that, let's patch it directly on production, and
right.
Someone else in the future will worry about that. But the CDN was always a problem. Like, you could test your AEM publisher and dispatcher setup locally, but then you deploy your code, and it happens that, one user reads the session, not the session, but the content of logged in user, then another user, right? Because it was cached on a layer that he didn't have locally. So I think it's crucial to be able to replicate the state of the production environment also in lower level environments, because production cannot be the first environment that you can test. Like,
that's right.
All agree.
Especially since so one of the pieces of functionality with the managed CDN is you can programmatically set environment variables, and a lot of times those environment variables are needed to be able to control things like your logged in user experience. So it's as much critical functionality. It's not just I want longer cache lifetime or something like that. It's actually functionally changing the behavior of the application, and you need to be able to test that as early as you possibly can and iterate on it as early as you possibly can. So that's
so you said that you can inject environmental variables into the configs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So probably you can just inject your domain name and have everything else just similar for staging and prod.
Yes.
Prod, right? Just replace the part that is changing.
Yep. Yeah. Which would be that's super cool. So anyway, excited there. The other thing, the what do they call them? Those experts sessions were also amazing.
Did you mean the lightning talks or the panel discussion?
It was three different ones. We had the lightning talks, we had the panel discussion, which you wanted to bring something up on.
Yeah. Well, right. Okay.
Yes. Good now.
I mean, I really enjoyed the panel session. I mean, the fact that they took the questions from the audience, and in that audience you had plenty of people that work with AEM, as in hardcore Java developers that learned AEM, and the entire first day was mainly about edge delivery services, so that there was this kind of difference between my experience, or not my experience, but attendees' experience, and what was talked about. So I do feel like them responding to all those questions was super cool, and it also gave us insight into what is the priorities that they're looking at. And one of the things that I remember most is that the use of front-end frameworks, how
yes.
I think Lars pointed it out that it so much depends on how long a user will interact with given experience, because there is an overhead of using front-end frameworks, right? So if you have someone using a car configurator, that's a point where you want that experience to be super cool, so that all that leather can be chosen and all that, but that lasts for like 10 minutes. But you don't necessarily want to, and for that experience, a user can wait a little bit, but you don't really want them to wait when you're loading a landing page or your homepage or whatever. Right. So they're ruthlessly prioritizing performance, and that's and the front-end frameworks now have a slightly different place in all that.
They have a different place, but I loved. I mean, it's so practical when you get to ask questions like that, and then just say, here's a practical problem. But like the example of the car configurator, you've got a user that will probably be interacting with your page nonstop for 10 minutes on that one user session. So yes, of course you want that, like you said, that particular experience to be exactly the one that you want, so that they do actually interact with it for 10 minutes. But the first page load you want to be fast. So that they're not actually talking about doing things for some nonsensical reason. You know what I mean? Like just because it's the way that they wanted to go. It's nice to see all the engineering reasons for it.
Yeah, I think the exact question was like, why should I use a delivery service, not some front-end framework with headless backend, let's say, right? Yeah. And I think there is more to that. Like the performance, I mean, that was great. Like you want the fast performance, use a delivery service. If you want a car configurator, use Angular. And actually that plays well. I mean,
that goes back very well with, there is a tool. Well, there is a problem, there's a tool. And don't use the one tool for everything.
Yes. So even before Edge Delivery Service, there was something like single page application, which is an application. And there are content pages that should be about content, and most probably HTML pages. So for example, in airlines, your booking or verifying their pages would act more like an application, because you need to have those calendars, choose tickets, prices, seats, etc. So this is a SPA. So this is great for Angular or React. When they're the blog pages or the corporate pages, text and images, you don't need to have Angular or React there. You need to have performance, good lighthouse scoring, especially that most of the content comes from that pages, right? I mean, if you want Google to index you and to position you, you're looking for landing pages and content-heavy pages and all that stuff. So
they should be performant.
So still, it doesn't have to be static HTML. It still can, but it doesn't have to be. It can be, but it shouldn't be Angular or React, because then you put additional layers on top of your site, and if it doesn't have to, that have a lot of logic, moving parts, etc., just use something performant. But there's more. Like I think you mentioned that. Like, who's the person deciding to use Angular or React, and who's the person deciding that we should go with a delivery service?
Right. Yeah. And should every single page be done with it? Because when you see some of these conversations about how to SEO an SPA, like how do you do search engine optimization on an application, and you kind of get into these, like, it's almost like, okay, so if I've got a cordless hacksaw, I mean, but what if I need to hit a nail into the wall with my cordless hacksaw? Like, what do I like? Do I like? No, it's the wrong tool. You use a different tool for that, right? And that's so. But I feel like it's very similar though for a lot of these things. But with the tools that we have available right now and the ways to stitch them together, I don't feel like there's any need to be defensive or anything about any of these tools, because they have their purpose, and there is a supported, really, and a lot of times a very elegant way of making them all work together. Yeah.
I saw a blog post like 2 weeks ago maybe, and it was about, like, if you talk with people who are integrating stuff, they would solve everything using ESB, like MuleSoft, right? If you talk with people who did 1 or 2 or 3 sites on the front end, if using Elasticsearch as a bucket, they will tell you to index everything, just throw it in an index and it will work. If you talk about cloud native advocates, like, just use cloud functions and it will solve all of the issues. We'll cache it on CDN, cloud functions, super fast, and it, So let's not be that guys that telling that. I mean, we were, I guess. Yeah. How many decisions around AEM, especially traditional AEM, was wrongly made only because we are the people knowing AEM.
That's right.
That's right. You would use AEM for all the wrong things. I mean, it's...
Yeah. So AEM is great for content authoring, publishing. It gets certain advantages over edge delivery services, especially when you need approval processes, when you need strict content structure, or more or less strict. We want to maintain the content for a long time. Then you need to have a proper repository. You need to have granular access control rules. You need to have workflows, approvals, and all of that, right? But yeah, there is a tool, and every tool got its purpose. And I think with edge delivery services, we got one more tool in our toolbox.
That's right. And I thought that. So I guess if I have a minute or two to bring up one last talk, I think it kind of summed up some of that too. Is there's a lot of, so one of the new tools in the toolbox is the new Universal Editor in AEM, and that's, I mean, universal is a strong word because it's not actually universal. Like I can't edit my clothes using that, so it's not really universal. But the fact is that there are ways now of structuring a project so that if you want to have things, some stuff in AEM, you got some stuff that you edit with Universal Editor, and that makes the most sense because you have a lot of content governance that you're trying to put into it and say, good, yep, the editors, they can do this, and this, and absolutely nothing else. And this is going to be stored, and I'm going to control my permissions very granularly because I'm going to say that this set of content editors can only do these things, and that's that. And it's totally the right tool for that. There are other parts, maybe even of the same exact website, the same domain, where it's like, no, we're prioritizing speed here. We want people to be able to just take one, copy, paste, get it up there, and where a document-based edge delivery type setup is just perfect for that, because you can just take a whole document, and for somebody who knows any kind of document, they're throwing things together. You could have the same code base run both of these things right now. You can have your AEM, you can have your assets, you can have your edge delivery, you can have all of it, and nobody needs to fight. You know what I mean? It's like,
Adobe is the most composable company in the world, because if they stuck, they got how many CMSs do they got? They got AEM, of course, which is the king. They got the document-based authoring, which is
a young prince.
But still, I've seen that was actually a pretty interesting presentation about Dark Alley.
Yeah,
some guy made that presentation. Some guy.
There was. I mean, you could see all those people collaborating on that content all at the same time, and it didn't break.
Yeah, actually, he was crazy enough to invite 200 people to go into an editor, and they were editing at the same time, right?
Even I got our Adobe folks who work. So just a little background. So just because I don't know, eventually this video will be up there. We'll be able to show people it. But so I give a presentation on this document authoring, and one of the features of this, in addition to all its other features, is that you can collaboratively edit. And we had always used that to have maybe 2 to 5 people looking at something at the same time. And theoretically, it's very resilient. So you could have many more looking at that at the same time. And so we just said, you know what would be crazy? What if we ask everybody in the audience to edit this document at the same time? And all 200 people. And so, it didn't light on fire. That was amazing. You know, the little icons all the way across the screen of all the people editing it at the same time. But yeah, that was good. Shows, it's a tool. It works. But yeah.
Yes.
Actually, there was one more talk that I really liked, and it was, you like it too?
Oh, the one from VML?
Yes,
that was good.
I mean, what they did, they actually implemented static site generator on AWS, and
driven from AEM.
The key part is that they can do release
10
times.
10 deployments a day. 10
deployments a day. Yeah.
But
then they describe how they build that architecture. It was very cloud native, like AEM as a content source, and then a lot of logic using lambdas, so cloud functions, CDN heavily utilized, and
and then they would put that content on a stream.
S3, yeah. And even architecture to actually connect all those things. So it was refreshing in a way that it was a little bit different from what you usually see. But when I was looking at it, I knew that there are people who can close their laptops at 4 p.m. and go home, and no one is like...
Because that is a resilient and very scalable solution. I mean, it can handle loads and loads of traffic, and you're not relying on AEM runtime to respond to that.
Yeah, so we still get back to that previous conversation, like that one with the OpenTelemetry. I mean, time flies, 20 years ago, we used to rely on Tomcat, on application servers, WebSphere maybe, monolithic applications that run on a single machine. And when you wanted to scale it, you just add more CPU or RAM.
That's right.
Right. So AEM is one step forward because you got publishers that you can distribute the content to multiple machines, but still at the core, it's a monolithic application that can break. If you put enough load, if you use search a little bit too much, it gets out of memory or out of processes or anything. Yeah. So with that solution, we got cloud right now, and we can use CDN, we can use cloud functions, we can use containers, Kubernetes, and actually get much more resilient performance and scalable solutions. And so they did that for a customer, and it looked great. But when you think about what Adobe is doing, they're doing just the same. Like edge delivery services, they get content bus, they are moving content from AEM or from documents into S3, and they got the CDN in front of it, and CDN is, serving the content, making it performant. Still, they got some events running here or there to invalidate the cache, to push the content to S3, etc. So yeah, I think that this is a general direction. Like, make AEM a CMS, like a content source, because it's the best way to best CMS. Best. I'm sure that there are a lot of content authors and marketing teams that loves it. All that master site management stuff, versioning, and language copies, workflows, all of that. Like, it's still a king.
Yep, I agree with that. Well, I think that basically wraps up the amount of time we got. But it was a fabulous conference. I think I'm more pumped than I've been in a long time on our chosen profession. It's a very fun profession to be in right now. You could solve, like we were saying, you could almost, with the people that we had in the room, we could virtually fly a rocket ship using the CMS. So it was.
Yeah, but they did talk about using the right tools for the right thing. So
okay, good. So I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying it might be able to be done. I'm not suggesting that we should.
Okay. So sorry, I'm removing it from my to-do list.
Okay, good. Yeah. Unless you want to just do that as a side project, in which case that would make for an excellent adaptTo presentation next year.
Yes, that would be good.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being on, and we'll talk more next time.
Okay. Sure. Thank you for having us.
Sure. Thank you. Yep.